Ariel is our TA for this week. She will be the camera enforcer because the TA is always responsible for attendance. So if you have a reason for your camera to be off for the majority of class, just shoot me and Ariel a Slack message and let us know what's up. Otherwise, having your camera on will be a requirement for attendance, and that attendance plays directly into your stipend. So thank you guys for having it on. It does make it much easier for me to teach, to see how that's soaking in and what concepts you're getting, which ones you're struggling with. So I hate to be a stickler, but it does really help make sure that the concepts are sinking in. Tonight we are going to be doing one final code example of moving our portfolio over to React. We're going to get a little bit more practice. We have our project set up already, but we're going to use that static HTML. We're going to move that over. We're going to practice converting our class names. We're going to talk a little bit about identifying different components, and when we need a page and when we need a child component. So we're going to be getting into that a little bit. And then tomorrow and Thursday are all open office hours. So we're just going to be working on your capstones. It doesn't matter if you don't have anything started yet and you just need a little push. Or if you're super far advanced and you're thinking about interactivity and you want to know how something is handled. We're going to be spending tomorrow and Thursday on that. So treat this like a catch-up week. We do know how many assignments you are missing, if you are missing any assignments on Canvas. If there's that one assignment that you've been stuck on for 4 weeks and you think you forgot about it, we know. So if you need help on any homework assignments, you can catch up on those. If you're really feeling like you're underwater on homework assignments and said, Max, could you give me some advice on which homework assignments to focus on? I can definitely go through and say, all right, these are the homework assignments that are going to help you the most. So we can use all of that time. And the way it will run tomorrow is if you guys have a question, you're going to raise your hand. And then when I call on you, you can decide, hey, I want to go in a breakout room and work with you directly. Or, hey, this may be something that another student can benefit from and see, and have it be part of the YouTube recording. So one-on-one help will be available, but I'm going to encourage you guys to kind of stay in that classroom environment. If you are someone who has their task list and all you need is 3 hours to work, we're going to have kickoff class. We'll do stand up. We'll take quick attendance. And then if you guys want to drop out and go work on things on your own, that's totally fine with me. If you guys want to go out in a group and have a couple of you guys in a breakout room, we can orchestrate that. All of this is a reminder that we have a capstone check-in on Monday. So don't think, hey, 3 hours of class tomorrow, 3 hours of class on Thursday, I can just skip out on them, because we do have that capstone check-in on Monday. And if we don't, if you're out on Monday, we will track you down and schedule a one-on-one to find it there. With all of that said, don't want anyone to panic. The expectations for the capstone check-in on Monday is that you have at least 2 pages in React, you have your routes set up, and you have some content inside of them. Doesn't need to be super advanced. You don't need the entire page done. It doesn't need to look pretty. But by Monday, we want to see you guys have at least 2 pages done and have that done in React. And if you're panicking and you're like, oh my God, I haven't even started my React project yet, we can spend time on Wednesday and Thursday getting all of that set up. So that is where we're at, where we're headed. Everyone on Monday, I am going to ask you to share your screen, because oftentimes you're like, oh, I'm embarrassed by something, or it's good to see not only where you are at, but for your fellow students to see where you are at as well, right? And it also gives us an opportunity to say, oh, it turns out everyone's struggling with this one concept. Let's find a way to kind of include that in the curriculum before we move forward. Any questions on that?
Share your screen for what?
for the capstone check-in on Monday.
Oh, okay.
The format's going to be very similar to the last ones. You're going to share your screen. You're going to show us what's going on in the browser. If you want to show us your code, that's also good. But it will just be a quick rapid fire. Hey, this is what I have done so far. This is what I'm struggling with. You know, here's what I want to do moving forward. But it's up to you guys to decide, all right, what am I struggling on? Is it that I don't have enough time to work on this? Is it that I'm not feeling comfortable enough with React? Is it that I'm feeling overwhelmed getting started? Is it that, you know, you aren't confident in your plan? There are so many things that can go wrong beyond just that syntax error that we've all run into, right? And so that's what those capstone check-ins are for, is to kind of show the whole class where you're at and how you're progressing. With all of that said, I hope everyone had a lovely holiday weekend. What did we learn last week? Artrell, go for it.
I learned that it pays to listen to Exona when she asks a question.
Do you have a specific example there that you'd like to share with the class?
Probably making sure that the microphone is on when we're recording.
Ouch. Ouch. Go get some ice for that burn.
I'm sorry.
I really thought about like channeling my inner like ice skater what are they called, the announcers, be like an ice skate announcer and just go through the video from Thursday and just, I don't know what he's thinking here. Oh, he's going for the triple axel, just voice dubbing over all of it.
You should do that.
Oh, he's moving his mouse. Oh, he switched windows. What else did we learn from last week other than checking the recording and making sure everyone can hear me?
Well, we reviewed a lot more on the routes and the routing. That review was really helpful. Because
Yes.
now I'm looking at it like, okay, they're there because they're supposed to be. Oh, they're there because they do this, because they connect the pages.
Yes, absolutely. We use routing because all React apps are what we call SPAs, single page applications, right? And that's great, but sometimes we want multiple pages. And so that's what the router does, is that it allows us to kind of be the bridge between the URL that's in the browser and the component that we want to show up. And there is an unlimited number of components you can put in other components. And we're going to see a little bit more of that tonight. How can we use our portfolio site and break down sections of it to make that code a little bit more readable? And based off of Schneider's question from last week, we're going to practice using folders to kind of group logical components together, make them a little bit easier to navigate around. Any other light bulb moments from last week or anything over the weekend before we dive in?
We touched on reusable components and using them.
Yep. What about reusable components?
If you have a code that you are using in multiple different areas, creating a component that you could use on different pages without having to create the code all over again to make it dry.
Exactly. And how do we have reusable components that have different content inside of them? What React concept do we use for that?
Props.
Props. So props are the way that not only can we pass data and information from the parent component down to the child component, it is a way that we can make those components reusable by saying, yes, every chat message bubble looks like this, but this is the content that I want to show up inside of it.
So I have a question.
Yes.
I'm having a little bit of a hard time, and maybe I'm having a little bit of a hard time understanding which one is a parent component and what distinguishes a parent component with a child component. If so, is there an example that you could just possibly like show us really quick before we move on?
Absolutely. And we will have parent and child components coming up in tonight's class. I'll be sure to call them out once we get to them. And I'm trying to be resourceful and use one of the cheat sheets that I shared.
Yeah, thanks for sending those out.
Ariel, if you have a chance, can you link the 4 cheat sheets that I added in the student C4 channel into tonight's outline? Okay, well, I'm just gonna go find the chat app because that's the best example. That was 13 day 4. Sometimes folders just don't want to drag. You guys ever run into that? You're like, I have it, I clicked on it. Why are you not dragging? Okay, so in our chat app, we've got a couple different levels. App almost always contains the highest level parent component. Why is it a parent? Well, because there are sub-components that show up inside of it that are called children. So inside our component called app, we have 3 other components. One's called header, one's called message list, and one's called message input. Now we can tell that these are our own custom components because they do have a capital letter to start them out. So we know div isn't a React component itself. It's just an HTML element because it starts with a lowercase d. But when we have our uppercase, we know, hey, we've made our own component. Now, if we go into something like messages list is a child component of the app component, but messages list has its own components inside of it. It references both sent message and received message. So because of that, anything in this received message down here is what's going to show up in the parent up here. So messages list is both a parent and a child component. It is the parent of the received and sent message components. It is also the child of the app component. So you don't really normally go multiple levels up. But if you wanted to, you could say that received message is the grandchild component of the app because we go from the app component into the messages list component. And then in the messages list component, we go one further level down to that sent or received message. And that now becomes its own child component. So basically, whenever we use another component inside a different component, it just makes it a child of that component.
Okay. Thank you. That explains it very well.
Any other questions or light bulb moments from this weekend? How do we feel about the homework? Finally, a homework that you weren't stressed out about over a single syntax error, hopefully?
Yeah, definitely. And it made me realize I understood more of it than I thought, because I was looking at it in the code and thinking, oh my God, that's so much to look at. Do I understand how these things relate? I don't know. But then when I had to start writing it out and seeing it in a different format, it made so much more sense. It was great.
That's what's so important, right? And you may be looking at that and going, oh my God, look at everything that I know, and show it to one of your family members or even show it to a fellow student. And they could look at you like you had 3 heads. Doesn't matter, right? Because what you did is went out and you said, all right, I'm going to get my understanding of this and I'm going to document it in a way that makes sense to me. Now,
Mhm.
sometimes you need to document things in a way that makes sense to the team. And so that, believe it or not, is its own entirely separate job title. Oftentimes, as a developer in a smaller company, you'll need to write documentation, whether it's inline comments, whether it's a little summary at the top of the file. But there is an entire job description called technical writer. And a technical writer's sole job is just to work with developers, understand the code the way the developer understands it, and write it in a way a non-technical user can use it. So when you go on the Open Weather Map API documentation, the person who built the API or the people who built the API, chances are not the same people that wrote all the API documentation. They hired a technical writer, and the technical writer's job would be to sit down with the developers and say, you explain this to me, and once I figure it out, I'll write it out in layman's terms or for another developer to understand. There are all kinds of special lingos that people use, acronyms that pop up inside of companies. There's all kinds of the art of technical writing. And trust me when I say you will find more bad documentation than good documentation, unfortunately.
Mhm. So a coder should become a technical writer for another job.
You could, like I said, there are companies that certainly hire teams of technical writers full time. If you're working in a company like Amazon or Microsoft or Google or Netflix, there is an entire team dedicated to technical writing. So that is certainly a career path that you can consider after the boot camp. We do have a lot of students who say, hey, I got more out of what I don't want to do than what I did want to do, right? And that's okay with us. Sometimes you take this entire boot camp and you figure out, all right, now I've got a better sense of what I want to do. And even though we only spent 2 weeks in the database, I want to go work in the database. Even though we only spent 1 homework assignment doing technical documentation, you may say, hey, you know what? I don't like actually writing the code, but I love reading the code. I love understanding the code. I would love to get more people to be able to use code that was already written. Then a technical writer could be a great fit for you, right? It's always a Venn diagram of what skills intersect. And if you find that communications and writing is a passion that you want to bring into technology, technical writer is certainly a good job description for you.
That's cool.
Any other things for the beginning of class before we dive into our portfolio? Okay. So we're going to fire up 2 different projects here. And I know you guys are probably getting sick of moving old HTML over into React, but this is a really good practice to think about your file organization before you move things over. So we're going back to the portfolio project. That was week 4, day 3. So we're going back into the archives. I'm going to pop open this day 3 folder in my VS Code. I'm going to share my screen because I don't want to be beat to that. Okay. Day 3, I'm going to go into VS Code. And back in the olden days, we started our servers by hitting the go live button. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is going to bring up our lovely portfolio site. Our contact form, our about, we got our portfolio, and we're good to go. So now, because we were smart, we also got week 16, day 2 set up. So I'm not going to drag day 2 into VS Code. I'm going to drag the actual portfolio folder into VS Code because it's the whole project. Go ahead.
Sorry, you said that it's a week 4, day 3?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Check-in day 2, we did it over 3 days. So if you have it in week 4, day 2, that's fine to use. I will also send out in the live stream channel if you prefer to use mine. Let me send out a zip for that.
There's a file that says weather, but that's because we imported the weather app to go into the project, but it is the portfolio.
I got it now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Alba.
Week 16, day 2.
Week 16, day 2 is our React portfolio project. And so I am going to go to File Explorer. You see, I have both things open. Tonight may be the night that I break and I have to use desktop spaces. So I'm going to go in, right click on my package.json. I'm going to open an integrated terminal. I'm going to do my npm start and hit enter. And that is going to bring up my React app in the same tab, hopefully, as my initial portfolio site. I will start a live share. I think you guys only need the React code. If you guys end up needing a live stream to my code, let me know.
What week was the portfolio?
Week 4, day 3.
I'm sorry, I didn't notice what you did to open up the
React?
No, the regular one.
Oh, in the regular one, you just use your go live button down at the bottom.
Did you say we were going to have 2 different tabs in one code window?
No, I may have to use virtual desktops where we like swipe back and forth. Because there's only so much I can keep on my screen. I have a slightly larger laptop screen, but I would really love to be able to use my 2 28-inch monitors in front of me. But if you think my screen is tiny now, wait until you see me share a 28-inch monitor. Anyone need help? We should have our week 4, day 3 code open. That should be open in VS Code and in the browser so we can see it. Again, we opened it, the day 3 folder, and hit the go live button down at the bottom. Then we opened up our portfolio folder from week 16, day 2. We dragged that into VS Code. We right click on package.json. We run npm space start and hit enter. That pops open our React app, and we are good to go. Anyone need help?
I
Okay.
do, Max.
Oh, yep.
All right.
for it.
So I'm in the package.json. And I got to put in npm start.
You're going to right click on package.json and open an integrated terminal.
All right, so let me close this one that was already open. Okay, so hold on. So all right, integrated terminal.
Oh, and then in the thing that pops up at the bottom, npm space start. And hit enter on that, and that should pop open your home page in the browser.
All right, so I got that. All right, and my portfolio. All right, I think I'm good.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to do some project cleanup and talk about project planning here for a second. So the first thing I know whenever I start a new project, I want Bootstrap, right? I want to have access to the grid system. I want to be able to use those components. I want to be able to make buttons and forms look pretty. I know I'm going to forget that if I start moving code over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my in my portfolio, in my React. I'm going to go into index.html. Then I'm going to switch over to my my original portfolio, my HTML version, go all the way up to the top, and I've got a link tag in here. I don't want this link style CSS. I only want the link tag to Bootstrap. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, come back over to my React project, and paste it in anywhere in the head. I mean, on a new line anywhere in the head. Don't, paste it in the middle of an existing tag, but go ahead and paste that in.
Okay, so just to reiterate, the Bootstrap link from our week 4, day 3, we're copying that into which page in the portfolio?
Public index.html.
Public index. Thank you.
So now I'm going to head back over to my browser, and I'm looking at this and I go, all right, this is all my homepage. But my homepage kind of has some very clear sections, doesn't it? It has my header up at the top. It's got an about section. It's got a contact section and a portfolio section and a footer section. And if we're looking at our code, we're looking at this and look at how long all of this is. We're repeating something over and over again for every single project we have. That's not the cleanest approach. We've got all of these different rows and sections that are all together. If I'm working on this, I don't want to have to read through 150 lines of code to just fix a typo in my contact form. But it does make sense that all of these are logically grouped together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my portfolio, and I'm going to, in my SRC folder, right click and hit new folder, and I'm going to call this home. And inside my home, I'm going to create several files. I'm going to create my header.js. I'm going to create my about.js. I'm going to create my contact.js. I'm going to create my portfolio.js. And finally, I'm going to create my footer.js.
Are you creating a new file or new folder?
A new folder called home, and then new files for everything else.
Okay.
And
So
you want to
folder and the files within the folder.
correct. So you want to make sure all 5 of these folders are inside the home folder, and you can confirm that because if you hit the little arrow, they should all disappear. You want to make sure all 5 of these files are inside the home folder, and that the home folder is inside the SRC folder.
Okay, so we need app.js, home.js, project.js. Now,
Portfolio.js.
portfolio.
Now, inside every single one of these, we need to make a new component and export it. So don't panic. We're doing the same thing across all 5 of these, just with the names changing. So I'm going to start at the top alphabetically. I'm going to start in my about, and I'm going to say const about equals a new function. It's going to return an H1 that just, it's going to return a div. And inside the div, there's going to be an H1 that says about. And then we're going to export the default about component.
Okay, Max, I'm sorry. Can we go backwards for a minute? I'm still creating my new files in home.
Okay, they're all over here if you need to reference them.
All over where in the Zoom? Thank you.
So we're going to rinse and repeat here. We copy our about, we go into our contact, we paste, and we replace all three abouts with the word contact. Contacts, contact, contact. Now it's a good idea to close files as you're going because otherwise you end up with a gazillion tabs. So I'm going to use the Command W keyboard shortcut that automatically closes whatever tab I'm in. So I move on to my footer and I do my footer, my footer, and my footer. I save, I close, I move to my header, I paste, I do my header, and my header. And then after this one, we'll take a break and let everyone catch up. We do our portfolio, and our portfolio. And it will be a miracle if I did all 5 of them without any typos. So I'm going to leave this on the screen. This is exactly what we want to put in all 5 of the files. Just change the name of the component, the H1, so we know that it's working, and the export default down at the bottom. Pause there and poll to give everyone a chance to catch up.
So what would the app.js be considered?
We will get to that in a second.
Okay.
App.js is a component. It is the most parent component in any React application. So there is no app is not a child component of anything. It's just considered the parent component, the one component that has everything in it. Let's 6 votes in, give you guys another couple minutes here. If you need any help, if you have a syntax error, let me know. Raise your hand.
Just quick question, Max. Is it okay to have 2 React projects open at the same time? Will it like interfere with each other?
It won't. So when you are in the terminal and you run that npm start command, and you get an error message that says something is already running on port 3000, this is React when it's firing up the server to say something's already running there. Should I just try a port higher? Should I go try run on port 3001 instead? It is very common to have multiple servers running at the same time. In fact, you probably are running servers on your computer that you don't even know you're running. Basically what ends up happening is we'll be setting up our backend on a different port. And our database server is also going to be on a different port. And so ports are basically just a way to say, hey, this is all one computer. This is all one IP address, but we have multiple things running on it. So it's kind of, I know I've heard the analogy say, that your IP address is like your street name, but then the port is like the house number, right? You're not going to accidentally send traffic to the wrong house if you have that house number right. The house number you can think about as a port.
Yeah, that answers that, and that kind of ties back. That was the example that Ryan used, like the IP versus a house having like multiple ways to get in. But all right, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it wouldn't break anything that we're doing right now. Thanks.
Smart guy, we use the same analogies. I probably got it from him and then forgot that I got it from him and then just have been repeating it ever since.
I mean, it works well, so I can see why.
All right, looks like everyone's voted in here. Does anyone need help?
You did. I have the about done.
Okay.
What other one did we just?
All 5 of these get the same about copied and pasted into them, except we just change the 3 places about shows up with the name of the component. So we're in our app.js. We've got our home set up, but my home isn't inside my home folder. Well, that seems kind of dumb. That makes sense to me that my home component would be in my home folder. So I'm going to take my home.js and move it inside my home folder. And I go ahead and I hit move on that. And now we get this lovely pop-up. And it says, do you want to update the imports for home.js? Well, what VS Code is recognizing is because we move the file inside of VS Code itself, it sees all of these file paths that are getting imported that are now going to break. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit yes on this. And you'll notice up in our import, we now are importing from home/home.
Mine didn't do that.
Did anyone else's do that? Okay, well,
Mine did.
It just let me do it. I just had to click yes, do that.
do you already have your import home from home and a route for your home?
No, not yet.
That's why. So it can't update imports that don't exist yet. So these were, I think, the last 2 setup steps that we did on Thursday. And so if yours didn't do that, take a moment to make sure your app.js looks like my app.js. We should have import home up at the top here. And now we've got 2 slashes in the URL or in the file path because every time we go into a folder, we introduce another slash. So the period says always start at whatever folder this file is in. This file is in app.js is in the src folder. So we now want to say, hey, when you're in the src folder, that period slash, go into the home folder. That gets me into here, and then use the home.js file. Fun fact for you, the JS is optional. So if you wanted to put in .js, you definitely could, and that would work fine. You can leave it off as well. .js is the only file extension you can leave off and have your import still work. So for your app.css, you can't just import ./app. You have to import the whole file name, except for .js, because JS files like other JS files, and they don't need the file extension. Okay, so we've got all of that set up. So I'm going to go back to my browser, and I'm going to go to my React app tab. Make sure you don't get these 2 mixed up. And I see home, go to project page. But we just did all of this work. We have all of these other lovely components. How do we use those components?
We have to create routes.
You already have a route. My route's right here.
Did you create the tags for them?
Oh, we've got to go into our home, and our home has this H1 here, but it has this link to project page. We'll get to that later. So I'm going to go ahead and take this link out, and I want the H1 of my header to show up in here. So I'm going to go to my home, I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to put in my header file. And if you notice in this autocomplete, it has that /header. If you use that autocomplete and hit enter, you will notice we've got an import from /header. Now, why don't we need ./home/header? Because this home file is in the same folder that header is in. So because it's in the same file, the / means, hey, start at whatever folder this file is in, and then go find this file called header. So I need to finish off my tag. And now over on the left, I've got my header. Well, if I remember correctly, about came next. So I'm not going to put in my closing tag there. I'm going to use the autocomplete, because as soon as I do this autocomplete, watch up here what happens to that import. It imports it in for me. The order of the imports do not matter. So even though my header comes before my about, they can be imported in whatever order you want. So I'm going to keep on going here. I think it was my Oh, go ahead.
Wait. Oh,
Yeah, it's not showing up for me.
Your autocomplete.
So yeah, I'm doing header. Maybe I should make it bigger.
Yeah, mine isn't working either.
Yeah. So I'm doing header and then,
Share your screen for me, Xona.
sure. So if I put header and then I complete it, it takes me to headers. But I
So
have
hold
header
on,
here.
2 problems here. Delete that out. You're missing your closing div tag, and autocomplete always gets weird when it can't find a closing div.
Oh, well, then that doesn't work for that. Okay.
So now in here, you have to type out the whole word headers.
But I don't have a headers. It's header.
Delete the ES. Well, what could I possibly have installed that's making mine work?
Yeah, I feel like mine definitely did at one point. It definitely auto completed like the custom components, but it's not doing it now.
Can you open your header file for me, Xona?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you did that right.
So I just tried it. It works if I do it in my app.js file. It auto completes my components, but it didn't work on the home page.
we don't gotta install anything else other than the whole router thing, right? So
I thought of that and I looked at my extensions and I don't have any extensions installed. Now, header is kind of a bad one because header, but it's not working on about either.
What I've seen is if the component is already imported on that page, it will auto complete it. But it seems like how you did it was you started making the component and it just automatically made the import. And that doesn't seem to be happening. It seems to like need the import, so it autocomplete.
Oh, well, now this is really weird because I just tried to put in my contact component and it's not showing up.
turn it off and turn it back on. That could work.
We are at that spot. Well, okay, I will say this. It is good to get practice typing out your imports so you don't rely on a tool. So if, for example, I wanted to get my import from my contact, what I would do is say import contact from my ./contact. And then because I've got it imported here, I can then use it down here. So I think I have contact, then my portfolio. And this is a great example of where's my portfolio. It's just not showing up yet. So if I close out that tag, I get an error that says portfolio is not defined. That will become the bane of your existence because you will say, what do you mean? I have my portfolio over here. I started using the portfolio tag and I forgot the import. I cannot tell you the hundreds of thousands of times I have gotten the error, use state is not defined. It's built into React. It's the core of React. What do you mean use state is not defined? So what we do is we import our portfolio from our / portfolio file. I think we've got footer and then we've gotten all of them. And my autocomplete just doesn't. As soon as you told it that yours weren't working, my autocomplete got gun shy and stopped working. Thanks a lot, guys.
Sorry.
So if we save and look into our browser, we should see home, header, about, contact, portfolio, footer. Not very pretty, but it is very functional. Artrell, go for it.
Yeah, I don't have that, Max. I made a mistake somewhere somehow.
Go ahead, share screen.
All right.
What would be content in the header?
That's going to be like where our name shows up and the little tagline underneath it.
Oh, okay.
Some people call it a hero. Some people call it the banner, whatever you want to call it.
And second question, are these links to separate pages by routing? Are these components?
They are not. That is a very important question. Right now, we only have 2 routes. Artrell, I'm going to jump in for this question first. So our only 2 routes are our home and our project page. These 2 routes link to a component called home and project. Now, when we go to the home component, which is its own route, making it its own page, its own path, we then see that home has its own content in it and links to 5 different children components. So header, about, contact, portfolio, and footer aren't their own pages. Well, why not? Because I don't want someone to be able to just load my footer component. I only want them to be able to use my footer if they're on the home page. So even though we have all of these different files over here, what makes them a page is the fact that we've got a route and a component together. That's what makes it its own page.
Gotcha. So look out for the routes. Thank you. Because I was a little confused.
Routes are the way we make it so not every single one of our components has to be its own page, which does make it a little bit easier to make our components more reusable. Artrell, go for it.
All right, let me try to share my screen. It's not letting me share my screen. It says screen sharing has failed to start. Please try again later. Error code 105035. That's
a new one. Listen to it. Go ahead, try it again.
All right, I'll try one more time. It's only fitting because my phone died today. Like it just stopped working. I plug it in, nothing. I think I bricked it somehow, so I need a new phone. Yep, same error code, Max.
Exona, just because you've already screen shared tonight, can you try a screen share?
Show off. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, here is the backup. Go to the live share button over here on your code. And then the second button down, I can't show you because my live share is going, but there should be something for start a live share or share a session or something like that.
Yes, Yeah, there's share and there's join. So hit the share one, right?
Hit the share one.
All right. So I
And
did that.
then go into Slack and paste that to me as a direct message.
Wait, say what now?
Go to Slack.
Okay. Hold on. Okay.
And go find me over in the sidebar.
Okay.
And hit command, click into the message field and hit Command V.
Oh, okay. And then hit return. All right.
You got it. So, oh. No, your live share must not have started because it doesn't have the live share link in it. Go back to VS Code.
Okay.
I think you have to sign in either with GitHub or Microsoft.
Does it have a message either at the top center or bottom right?
Yeah, it says sign in using whatever. All right. I'll sign into GitHub.
Try that. Shoot me the link. I'm gonna call on Kalai and then I'll come back to you, Artra.
I'm not seeing the OM in my source page.
Um,
Did you created the folder, separate folder, home folder?
The home folder I created, then I made all of the files inside the home folder. Then I took the existing home.js file and I moved it into the home folder.
Okay, then I'm gonna share it to you. So,
Yeah, so you did not create the home folder. So let me request remote. And I'm going to right click on SRC. That's the right one, Artrell. Thank you.
Awesome.
And I'm going to create my home here. Okay, then I'm going to move all of my files into it. Project doesn't, but home does and about does. And now you've got a nice pop-up for updating the imports. And then let's go look in our app. Now our app is going to the home folder and
Okay.
the home file has everything in it. So now you just need to do your imports for the header and about and contact and all that
sure,
stuff.
sure. Thank you.
No problem. All right, Archer, let's see if I can fire up your link to a new window so I don't accidentally close out of my live share. I will join and paste in your link and hit enter, and then I will share my screen. Okay, so you've got your header, your about, your contact, your portfolio, your footer. You've got everything imported here, which is good. And in your app.js, you've got your home and it's referencing the home in the right folder. So all of that is good. So do you have something that looks like this in your browser?
I do not.
Okay, so what shows up in your terminal down in the bottom?
Let's see. It says compiled with warnings. Line 1:10, link is defined but never used. No unused vars. Search for the keywords to
Okay,
learn.
so in your browser, just open a new tab and go to localhost 3000. Localhost colon 3000. Sorry, I don't know if I said the colon.
A local host is our own server hosted by the laptop, right? More or less.
More or less, yes.
All right, I got it now.
So the other trick is you can always go into the terminal and hit Control-C to stop it, and then up and enter to restart it, and that will open it in a new tab. But localhost 3000, even though we close the tab, the server is still running in the background, right? So if you had some error message in the terminal, then it wouldn't be running. You couldn't use this trick. But because we've got 40 different windows open, you must have closed it or it, got lost somewhere. So opening up a new tab and going to 3000 is the right trick.
All right,
Um,
that works.
Just a quick question. Mine says portfolio is not defined, even though I have portfolio.
Do you have your export? Does everything look right in the portfolio file?
Yeah, portfolio. Wait. Just kidding. Thanks.
No problem. Anyone else need help?
I'm almost caught up.
Cool. What we should have over here is just all of our H1s showing up. All right. Anyone need help?
I just need to open this up so I can make sure that the H1s show up. I think that's where I'm at. Home has all the imports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And portfolio JS is just another H1.
I'm going to go to my home.js file, and the header is the place that I want to start in. So I could go over here and open the file like a chum, but I could also hold in command and click on the word header, that component, and it will automatically pop it open for me if all of your imports are right. Okay, so now I come back over to my old school HTML and I gag down, not reacting to this ugly code, but I need to section out what's happening here, right? So I go up and I've got a contact form. I don't want any of that. I got up to the top and I'm like, whoa, there's a link tag up there too far. I want to come down and my whole site is inside of a container. Now, I could take that and make that container show up in each one of these sections, but I want a container around all of these components. So instead of just blindly copying and pasting, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my container doesn't close for a while. It doesn't. So I'm going to reuse this div already in our home, and I'm going to add the container right on top of that. Now I come over and I go, oh, this is already nicely sectioned off for me. Has my name and my little tagline and all of that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that whole section, move over to my header file. And I don't need this div with the H1 header in it anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and paste that in. So it was the entire section from over here. We copied that and we moved that in to the return in our React. We also, in Home.js, made sure we added the class name container. And whenever we copy and paste code, we've got to look. And we've got to say, okay, is there class anywhere? There is. That needs to become class name. We don't have any style tags on this, so we're okay. But if we did have style tags, we would need to convert those styles into an object. So far, so good. We've got our header in. I go back to my browser, and I'm like, ew. My header is just all nice and pretty up here, and it's not, it's decently pretty, but not pretty. Where's all my spacing? Why, what happened?
We haven't imported our CSS.
Yeah, we did. It's right here. Import app CSS.
Did we put it or it's our other?
Ooh, let's open up our app.css, and this is all empty. So we don't use link tags in React. We just import the CSS file directly. Towards the end of class, I'm going to show you guys a trick of how we can make sure different component CSS files don't impact each other. Show you that at the end of class. For now, I'm going to go back to my VS Code. I'm going to go to my style.css file. I'm going to copy that whole thing, go over to my app.css, and paste all of that in. Again, that is in our day 3 folder. I highlighted everything in style.css with a Command C or Command A, and then a Command C to copy it. I came back over to my React. In my app.css, I pasted in everything from my style CSS in my day 3 project. All of that works out. What we should have now is a very pretty header.
So when you copy or transfer the other stuff over, that CSS is gonna automatically be applied?
Correct.
Mm.
As long as we change our classes to our class names.
Okay.
So I have an off-topic question, maybe not off-topic, but how would you add images?
Great
I-
question.
'Cause
So let's say I'm on, let me go to Unsplash and grab this random image. So if I'm in my HTML, you don't have to follow me here. This is just an example. You don't need to add any of this new code. If I'm in here and I want like an image to show up between these two sections, I would just do my image tag and my source and save that, and it would show up right here. Huge, but it would show up. But we're referencing that from unsplash.com, and that's kind of fraught with peril, because if someone on Unsplash deletes this image, now I can't reference that image. It would be much better for me to download this image, then go into my vanilla code if we were in a vanilla project, move that in, right-click, rename to image, and then in my code, instead of using the source tag to Unsplash, we would just say image.jpg. And I save and I come over here, and now I still have my image working here. But if I take that same image tag and I copy it and I move it over to my header.js and paste it in, it immediately shows this broken image. Okay, well, it's a broken image because I don't have img.jpg in there. So all I need to do is take that image, move it into my public folder, and rename it as image.jpg.
Okay,
Now, if we come over here and refresh, we got our image.
gotcha. So it would have to be under the public folder, just drag it over.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And if, let's say, hypothetically, there was some styling on it, like over here, if we said, hey, the style is going to have a width of 100 pixels. And I go look, and now it's nice and shrunken down. If I do that same thing over here, I get an error message that says,
You
no,
spelled style.
I get an error message that says style prop must be an object. What that means is that I need to surround this with an object and then convert it like that.
Okay. So you wouldn't do it in the app.css.
You totally could, and that's probably the preferred place to do it. But
Mhm.
sometimes you're like, all I want to do is like shove this down a little bit, right? Or whenever, like in general, it's not good to use inline style elements in your HTML. The same applies to your React, but
Mhm.
sometimes you need some dynamic component. Sometimes you're like, hey, this should have a margin on the top of it if it's my contact form, but if it's my login form, it shouldn't have a margin on top. Well,
Okay.
you can do that in line here pretty easily, where you couldn't do like an if statement in your app.css. So if it's basically plain styling, you put it in your app.css. If you're doing anything fancy, you want to have it in a style tag in here instead.
Two
Gotcha.
questions. Why is it bad to do inline styling?
Because in general, you want to separate out your components as much as possible, and having your styling separate from your content is generally preferred.
Mm,
So HTML is harder to read when you have a lot of attributes on it. And if all of those attributes are your styling, it's going to be much easier to read something like IMG width 100px than it would be to do something like this and just add it all into your styling tag.
fair enough. Second question. Images. I know organizing is like preference, but is it cool to have separate folders for each of those pages for the images? Or would I get
Absolutely. You just have to reference them in the path. So if we wanted to make a new folder in here called images and move that in there, what we also need to do is when we have our image here, we need to say /images/img.jpg. Because we moved it into its own folder, we do need to update that path to show the image.
and all of that new stuff that's not like .js that goes in public?
Yes.
Okay.
There are two different ways of importing pictures. One is putting them into the public folder. The other way is importing them. But we'll just stick to this example for now.
I have an issue. I put my information in the header, the section.
Yep.
I changed my class to class name.
Yep.
And I have my CSS. My CSS is showing, the black screen is showing, but there's no words showing.
Share screen, let's take a look.
So this is my header page.
Okay. Everything
My-
looks good there. And everything looks good there. So let's go up to your app.js.
Okay.
And everything looks good there. I'm stumped.
Maybe if you go back to your app.js, I'm sorry, your home. I think you were missing semicolons at the end of import.
Maybe, but I think I see the problem. You reference two element props, or you're supposed to be referencing two element props, but you've got an element.
Hey, what's the leaf route?
Tricky ease. No idea.
Thanks for the honesty.
Do I have that in mind? I hope I don't have that in mind. Oh, it's I do not have that in mind, so I don't know what a leaf route is.
Maybe
Okay.
we change the home path. I have to put a dot in front of it.
No, you shouldn't need a dot because we're referencing like the very beginning of the URL. So you shouldn't need, at least in the path of the route itself, you shouldn't need a dot in there. Anyone else have a leaf route warning message in their console? Okay. Just roll forward. So we have our header moved over and we're like, okay, this was pretty painful. There are a lot of steps we had to do here, but they're all very repetitive, right? We're getting a little bit more comfortable making our own components. We're writing those imports. We've got the exports going on. We're using our routes. We have our homepage all set up. Now I'm in here and I'm like, oh man, I still have some placeholder home in here. So I'm looking in my header file and I'm like, no, it's just my name and all of this stuff. Well, remember, this all trickles down. We start all the way up in the app. That's linked to our home. If we go to our home, we have this H1 still up there at the top. Well, I don't want that there. My header's there, and my header has everything in it that I want. So I'm going to go back to my home, and I'm going to just delete out that H1 tag. Now I come back over and I've got my clean website and I'm ready to move on to the next section.
So you deleted your home. Why? Because this right now is the home?
I just deleted the H1 in the home.
Oh, the tag. Okay.
Yep. All right. We feeling like we're ready for round 2 of moving? All of our, what?
Sorry, can I have one more second?
Sure.
I think I'm in a good place here. I just want to double check one thing. Okay, thank you.
No problem. You good to go?
I think so.
Cool. All right.
Sorry, what's project.js? Did you create that or is that just there?
That is something we created yesterday. I'm sorry, on Thursday. In app.js, we reference our project. We just kind of got that set up as its own page. So right now it's just an empty file with the H1 inside of it.
Okay.
We created that on Thursday, but we will be getting to that towards the end of class. Okay. Hard part is over, believe it or not. We've got all of our CSS moved over. We've got our first component moved over. We've got our route set up. We've got our homepage linking to all the other children component. We are ready to move along. So I'm going to go into my about next. I'm going to go back over and I'm going to go find where my about section is. That's this whole snippet right here. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come back over and paste that on top of my entire div, right? What's coming out of the returns. And this one, we got lucky. We didn't use any classes on this. So I go back to my browser and shabam, my whole about page is already in there.
Hey, Max, I don't see your screen moving much. Am I missing something?
Can anyone else see my screen moving?
Mm-hmm.
Artrell Technology is out to get you today.
What do you mean by moving?
Like he
all
can't
right.
see my thing switching.
Yeah, I didn't see his stuff switching. I saw it. I can see our faces on the right. He was still stuck on the about, and I saw no movement. All right. I'm sorry. Could you do that again, please, Max?
Yeah, no problem. In my day 3 code from week 4, I take the about section and I copy it. I go back over to my about.js file. I highlight the div that's in there between the returns, and I delete that out and I paste in my about section. And if everything's working, we should have our about section showing up here.
All right, Max, I'm sorry, go back to day 3 again. What do we click on?
We're taking the second section here.
The second section. Okay, because the first one, and index. Okay. Which is the about section. Okay. Copy that. And then we go over to our about and portfolio.
About JS in portfolio.
About
yes.
JS and portfolio. And we're going to click, where do we put it now? After the return.
After the return. And make sure you delete out your own div in React. If we wanted to put another div in here and say, I don't know, second div, you notice how my whole screen goes red? React can only return out one div or one HTML element. So the fact that there are 2 in here is really freaking it out. And it's like, no, you get to return 1. So if I surround this whole thing in its own div, now I can return out both the section and the div because it's all in one big div all together. But we can only ever return out one element, no matter how big the element is, no matter what it has inside of it. So we want to make sure that we just have the section in. We don't have that div with the H1 left.
So if we had more information to pass on, we'd just put div at the top and a div ending at the bottom.
You put it all in one giant big div. Yes.
Good to know.
For the advanced React people, you're already tuned out. Keep tuning out. Don't pay attention to this. But you can actually create what is called a fragment in React, which is basically a div without a div. So you don't put the div tag in there. But now this is totally valid React. So if you wanted to do a div with your H1 of like about, this is totally valid. It's called a React fragment. And it is literally exists for people who are like, but I don't want to put it all in a div. And JSX was like, we don't care. It needs to be all returned as one element. And so they compromised and came up with a fragment, which is literally just an empty tag, special in React, but it is what it is. All right, anyone need help before we keep going?
Yes, please.
Chair 3.
Okay. Where do I want to be? That's a good question. I'll go to desktop and move things in. So this is all what I have so far. And
Okay.
it looks like I'm caught up on all of that. I do have my first page.
Yep. And scroll down a little bit there. There's your about.
So I'm good.
Yep. All caught up.
Fantastic. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Get one more section in here, maybe 2. Picking up speed. We're feeling good about this. We go back over to our code, and our next section is a contact section. So I take this whole section, and man, this is a doozy. So make sure when you're scrolling down, you get all the way down to the closing of the section. So mine happens to be down on 78, and mine starts all the way up on 34. This is a big one. This is a good one to do and then go on break. So we're going to copy that whole thing. We come back over to our contact.js. I'm going to take out this entire div and paste in everything that came over. Now we've got all kinds of errors. I'm going to start with comments because those are red. in React, we aren't allowed to use HTML style comments. Instead, we have to use JS style ones. The quickest way to fix this, click into the line and hit Command/. It will automatically put that into a comment for you. So I'm just going through each one of my comments, clicking anywhere on that line and hitting Command/ to convert that in to a JSX style comment. Okay, save. Don't have anything screaming at me. That's good. But we've got like 40 gazillion classes here. I'm not going to go in and replace them all manually. Instead, I'm going to hit Command F. I'm going to type in the word class in this first text box. Then I'm going to hit the little arrow icon and I'm going to replace it with class name. And then I'm going to go over and I'm going to hit this second button over here, or third button, or wherever the replace all button is for you. That, when you click it, be careful. Before you click it, make sure it says class up here. Make sure it says class name with a capital N down here. Make sure that the classes are all highlighted in brownish orange. I have no idea what that color actually is. And then go ahead and click on replace all. And once you do that and hit save, you should be able to go back over to your browser and have a weird thing that just says email and your contact form over here. What happened? How did I? Oh, I commented out too much. Whoops.
What do I hit after I type in the class name for the replacement?
The third icon over, it should be right underneath the number 9.
Okay.
Do you have 2 inputs or just 1?
I have class name, and then I've got replace and replace all. There it is. Okay.
You want replace all. Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Thanks. They're so tiny.
Hey Max, how do I do the multi comment out again? Command what?
Command/.
Command/. Thank you.
All right, if you've got your contact form showing up, your React app should look something like this. If it does, you're all caught up and good to go. Go on break, be back at 7:25.
Wait, mine doesn't look anything like that. I'm just kidding. I just got here. I'll catch up and watch it.
I'll leave my live stream up during the break so you can catch up there.
Mine does not look like that. I don't know what mine is doing.
Share screen.
So that is my code.
Scroll over a little bit for me. I think you're missing the word return.
I think I need to delete that.
Yeah, you can get rid of that. And then go up to the very top of your code and scroll over to the, oh no, you do have your return.
I don't know. Can I see the page now? Oh, now it works. Never mind. I just had a comment. I always do this. I apologize.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
I gotcha. I stopped it for you. Anyone else need help?
Thank you.
I have a question, sort of
Shoot.
kind of unrelated. I keep saying Webpack compiling. Are we going to learn about modulars down the road, or is that just do it on your own time?
Do it on your own time, but be careful. It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is.
React
I'm
uses
looking for-
Webpack under the hood.
Mhm.
Webpack is the software that basically takes all of our NPM files, all of our JSX code, converts it into regular JavaScript code using React, and bundles it all together into one JavaScript file.
Is that transpiling or compiling, or is it neither?
Transpiling, but transpiling is just a fancy word for compiling.
It is, right?
It is, I mean, it's a subset, right? And anytime you transpile, you're still compiling, but you're transpiling because you're technically taking JSX syntax and converting it into vanilla JavaScript syntax. So we are kind of already using ES6 modules. Whenever we import a component, we are using the import export ES6 module syntax. That is different though from modules in Webpack. Once you get to modules in Webpack, you're pretty far under the hood in terms of internals and stuff working. So we don't go into Webpack. However, Create React App does use Webpack under the hood.
Heard. Thank you.
And I don't know if it's possible to use React without Webpack. That's something that I couldn't answer, but I do know that Webpack is used by React. Kalai, did you want to go over where you were stuck on homework? I will not make that mistake again for the rest of the cohort. Recording in progress. All right, so we are going to jump back over. Got our portfolio, we've got our contact section working. I need to get my portfolio over and my footer over. And look at that, we've got some images that we've got to deal with as well. So we're going to get started on moving the portfolio over. Going to go back to my day 3 code. Going to go down to my section portfolio. I'm going to copy. I'm going to go all the way down to the end of this section. Copy it. Go back over to my portfolio.js and go ahead and paste that in. I've got some things to deal with here. I've got my class instead of my class name. Because I already have this loaded, it's already detected that there are 22 different things here. So what we can just do is click this replace all button and it will take care of that for us. And then I'm just going to clean up some of my comments. Looks like that's all of them. Switch back over to Chrome. I make sure I'm in my React app tab. Don't make that mistake of being in the wrong tab. I scroll down and I've got everything loaded in here.
I had done that while we were on break.
Mhm.
The only thing on mine, it kept on giving me an error to the links. That it needed a closing tag, which I did those, but because it had a hashtag on the 2, it kept on not trying to show it, so I just had to comment out my links.
Don't worry too much about that. We're going to replace those links in a second anyway. So you can just leave them. And I'm just going to do one more final thing. Hopefully you guys are getting in the swing of moving this over. I've got my footer down at the bottom. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy my footer, go to my footer.js, go ahead and paste that in and hit save. And we should have a fully formed portfolio footer section. Pause there to pull really quick, and then we can move forward. Again, I took my entire portfolio section over here. I copied it. I went into my portfolio.js. I pasted that into my return. I did my find and replace on my class name. And then wherever I had a comment, I went through, clicked on the line with the comment and hit Command/ on it. Once I got all of that done, I did my final file, which is my footer.js, copied and pasted that over. And we think we're done on the home page.
So I'm on the portfolio page and it does not look. I don't know what's going on.
Share your screen, let's take a look.
Sorry. Oh, it's giving me the same error.
On the A tags?
No, it's giving me the same error as our child.
Oh, that you can't share your screen.
Yeah, so I might have to leave and come back. I'll be right back.
Go ahead. I have been in Zoom for probably thousands of hours at this point, and I've never seen a screen sharing error.
So why would you, when you copied and pasted your code, not give you an error, but when I pasted mine, which is the same code, it would give me an error?
Did you have an error or a warning?
No, there was an error because the screen was broken. It wouldn't show in the screen. I mean, after I commented out the information, then it was working fine. It just didn't have those clickable buttons to show the information and stuff. But when you transferred it over, I mean, we had the exact same code. You transferred yours over to the React. It didn't give you the same error code.
I'm going to see if Xana can share her screen, and then I'm going to ask you to do it next.
I already fixed mine, but
Do you have the commented out code though still?
yeah, I could put it back there so you could see what it was doing.
Yeah. Xana, any luck? Great. This is going to be a great end of class. Alba, go ahead and see if you can share your screen. You're muted, but I'm guessing the same error.
No, I don't have an error. I could share the screen. I'm
Oh,
just
okay.
tweak it again. I had copied yours and yours came out fine. It's just mine that didn't come out. So
Oh, you're in weather.
I'm gonna bring this up. Well, now it's showing, but before it was giving me the errors. I don't know why. It kept on saying the one was the closing tag for the image, but then there were 4 or 5 of them with the aref that failed to compile, and it wasn't giving me any. Well, it was doing this. I had changed the link to link, the arefs to link and the href to 2, and it was working fine. But then it was telling me that an error that I had to actually completely comment out the arefs.
So this is a good one to show. This image tag over in our vanilla HTML doesn't have a self-closing on it, and it probably should. But React is a lot pickier, right? So I know you know this, Alba, but calling it out for everyone else of sometimes you just need to put in that closing slash. And that makes React a lot happier because it's not like a dangling tag. It knows when that's over. But without being able to see the error, I'm not quite sure why that would have caused an issue. You know, we still have warnings down here about the href requires a value and it's not happy that we've got like an empty placeholder in it. But because those are just warnings and not errors, it shouldn't have crashed everything.
Before it was errors. Maybe it's because I changed the arefs to links and to 2, and then it didn't have like somewhere to go. Then it completely.
That could be. that definitely could be. And we're gonna get to that as the next step.
Okay.
Okay, maybe not the next step, but in a couple steps, we're gonna get to that.
All right.
Artrell, before I call on you, Exona, can you try a screen share again and see if it's magically working for you? No? Okay. Artrell?
All right, so I copied over a portfolio and I pasted it over into the portfolio. Now I get all those red lines.
Yep. So what you want to do is replace your class with class name and then go through and manually handle all of your commenting out.
Once I do the commenting out, that should fix it, because I did the
Yes.
class name already.
Yes.
All right, I'll come back if I still have an issue.
Exona, do you want to send me a live share link and I can try and help you that way?
No, it's okay, because it was the closing tag on the image.
Cool.
That's the same. So thank you, Alba, you saved me. Okay, so after portfolio, we have to do, because I'm behind, but we have to do the footer next, correct? Yes.
And the
Okay.
footer is a very easy one. How are we feeling? We feeling a little bit better about moving our code over? Saying, all right, you know, it's still HTML, but we can access it in our React. Yeah, React does some weird things with the style tags and images and class instead of class name, but you know, all together.
Can I see your browser?
Oh, yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, I still have the red lines, Max. Am I still sharing with you from before?
No, but give me 1 second. Is this what you need, Clay? Okay. Artrell, go for it.
All right, let me see if I can share my screen. I'm gonna try it again. The old school way. All right.
Max, if you try to take control over it, would it allow them to share?
We can try that on Exona next.
All right, 'cause I got the error code again, Max.
All right, we're gonna try it on you. I can. Oh, where did they put that feature? There's a way I can like, support. Request desktop control.
Number 2 is the one we need help with. Yep. So,
I doubt this is gonna work, but it's a good attempt.
all right, let's give it a shot. Oh, I got the error code again.
Yeah. There's a little support button on our side. I mean, I can try it with Exona, but I'm pretty sure Zoom is having a good swell Tuesday evening.
All right, if you can't help Exona, do you want me to share my link again with you for mine?
Is it the same link?
Should be.
Okay.
No, it's not allowing me, just an
Okay.
FYI.
Let me go. Copy link. Go to a new window. Go to my live share. Join. Let me share screen. All right, so we have our return. And we've got our portfolio. And we've got everything right down here. So it's got to be a problem. You missed the section. So when you copied it over, you missed that section tag. And I'm just going to copy it from mine to make sure the ID comes over with it. So this is the problem we were talking about before, because we're returning out an H1 and a P tag and a div. It's like, whoa, you're returning multiple things. That's not allowed in React. So what we do is we just put our section tag back in and then take our closing section tag and put it all the way down at the bottom. And now our eyes are not bleeding, but we do have a problem right here. You had a stray arrow here.
Okay.
And that's confusing it. We still have an issue. This div opens, but it never closes. So we need an extra closing div here. And now you're good to go.
Damn, you're good. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need help before we move on?
Cool. Yeah, I can't figure out why my photo is not showing up.
Try and share your screen.
Let's find it. Can you see my screen?
I can. It just takes Exona and intermittently on our trail.
Oh, I'm sorry, Exona.
It's okay.
All right. So I did this because it wasn't showing up, and I thought that's because I needed that root path.
No, so we would only want to make a new route for the footer if we wanted a separate page for the footer, if we wanted to go to like /footer. So what we want to do instead is head over to your app.js.
So should I delete this?
Yes.
You want my what?
App.js.
This is.
I'm sorry, your home.js. You are totally right. Okay, so you have your footer in there. Can you show me your show me your footer.js before we go to the browser? Yeah, everything's in there. So show me in your browser where it's not showing up.
Of course it reloads now.
Hey, look, there's your footer.
Of course it reloads now. Okay, thanks.
Exona, because screen share is now working, give it a try.
No.
Okay.
Okay, I don't have any issues right now, so
Okay. Back away slowly.
Hey, Max.
Yeah.
I just realized I have nothing like in my footer. Well, I didn't copy anything over from.
It's just that one little footer tag that gets copied over.
Where am I? Hold on.
You can take a look at mine if you want.
All right. If you could share your screen
Yep.
for me, please.
My footer is just this cute little footer right here.
All it says is a hack upstate has started screen sharing, unless I'm lagging for some reason.
If I lose my screen share, we're ending class early. So you have something you can all look forward to. Can anyone else see my screen? Okay, good.
It's me then. I don't know.
Here, let
My
me.
son's streaming, right? Okay, now
Oh,
it kicked in.
now
Wait.
it kicked in right when I was trying to reboot it. You know, I normally love teaching remote, but when the tools go bad.
All right. So after the return, just put in that little section and
You got it.
I'll do that. All right. Thank you.
All right. So we're looking at our portfolio and we've got these 3 cards, but I'm like, man, this is not dry at all. I'm repeating myself every time I have a new column with the card in it. And then I come back down and I repeat it again. And then I come back down and I repeat it again. So part of our React code sometimes is not just copying and pasting. It's also going back in what we call refactoring, right? We need to take this code and clean it up a little bit. And so in order to do that, I'm going to make a new component called project. So I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom of my file. And before that export default, I'm going to make a new component called project. And project is going to return something. Now, you could say, Max, why didn't you just create a new project.js file and import it? You could. That's totally down to personal preference, right? To me, the project component is part of the portfolio anyway. So I'd prefer to kind of put all of that into one file. However, if I had 40 different components that made up portfolio, what I would probably end up doing is making a portfolio folder inside the home folder and going from there and creating my files inside of that. So now I've got to figure out, okay, what am I returning? So I'm going to go up here and I've already got this comment for end of card. So that's going to help me out, but I don't want just the end of card. I want the end of this column. So I'm going to click on my div that has that column, and it's highlighting the div for me down here. So I know I can take this whole thing and copy it, then scroll down to my return and paste it on in. And now I've got my project component. But I'm already identifying some things that need to be different on every project. The image is different. The title is different. The text is different. And the button is different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, the source tag is going to link up to my image. These curly braces are a heads up to my JSX. Hey, we're going to do something JavaScript-y here. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to say, hey, my card title is in here. That's going to use the title. Then I'm going to come down and say, hey, my card text, that is going to use my text prop. And finally, my button is going to come from my button prop. So I now come up and I am going nuclear. I'm deleting, actually, I won't delete them all yet. I'll move them in one at a time. So I'm going to come down right above my last column, and I'm going to make a new project component. And that project component needs all different kinds of information. It needs the image, which we're going to take from our existing card. It needs the title, which we're going to pass in as a string. It needs the card text, which I'm going to copy and paste in. And it also needs the button, which I paste, which I paste in. So now, it should be a string, I can delete out this entire div.
So where did you get all of that information? Oh, you got it from,
The
okay,
existing div that exists.
okay.
So if you guys do one, I'll do the other two, and then you can just cheat and use mine. So I'm going to do one more project. I'm going to copy all of these props in and paste them. And then I'm going to grab some information from here. So now I've got these nice reusable projects. And if I come back over to Chrome, I still see the exact same project showing up, but I've got this nicely formatted props. And all I had to do was define that HTML once in its own component, receiving these props. We use those props in our JSX syntax, and then we're able to pass that information directly from the props here into the props right here.
Are we gonna give the project function its own page, or is it fine to leave it there? Because I heard that I think last time you gave the functional component its own page.
This project component is going to get it is going to stay in its in the portfolio file.
Okay.
You could move it out into a separate file and then just import it, export it, and it would work exactly the same.
Okay.
All right, give everyone a minute there. This is one that you can totally copy and paste mine, and that's fine. We just went through and moved all of our information into our props and then defined that component down here.
Do you mind just posting that on Slack?
Sure can.
I'm not on your live.
Ooh, bad Max. I forgot to format that. There you go.
So you put the image, the title, the text, and the button. That's it.
Yep. And then we pass that in as the props when we make it. And then we modify our return to include our props.
I have a question about the code at the bottom, starting with your line 35, Max.
Yep.
I'm looking at how you still left alt with Max Flick's screenshot in there with
Yes.
the description.
So good catch, but I'm going to get fancy here. Because we already have the title of the project, why don't we instead convert this to a template literal? And whenever we use a template literal, we've got to use the curly braces. So React knows, hey, JavaScripty thing headed your way. I'm going to use the title and say screenshot. And now, because I modified that alt tag, if I hover over one of these, I feel like hovering over images used to pull up the alt tag and it never does. If we do a quick inspect on these, we can see the alt tag is now set to feedback form screenshot because it's using the title prop and adding the word screenshot after it.
Cool. Okay.
All right, so we're rolling forward here. We've got all of this set up. But wait a second, we're using a pesky A tag in here, and we know that we don't like A tags. We would like to have a link tag in there instead. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, hey, I got a new link. I'm going to close out my link here. And before they can even tell me I don't have link, well, maybe I have link imported. Let me go up to the top. I don't have link imported yet. So I need to import my link from React router DOM. I come back down here and I'm like, okay, now we don't use href anymore. We use R2. And R2 is going to go to a project, but we need to include what project it's going to. And then we run into this other pesky thing where we say, well, we don't really have IDs on our projects, and some of our projects have spaces in the name. And we never want to include something that has a space in the name in the URL. But wait a second, let's think about this. If I come over here and I've got all of this stuff that shows up, when I click into one of those pages, there's a lot of information that's shared among both of them. There's information like the title and the summary, right? Those and the image, those all are shared. What if we could move our data source out into its own file, then have both components feed off the data in that file? That's cool. Let's do that. So we're going to make a new file. I'm not going to put it in home because it's going to be used by the project file out here. So I'm going to right click on my SRC and make a new file called data.js. And inside my data, I'm going to export a default object. Nope, I'm going to export a default array. And inside this array, I'm going to go back to my portfolio and kind of just split screen here. I'm going to take all of this information and move it into its own object. So I've got to replace my equals with colons. Move my string up onto the same line. And put my commas in. Okay, now I've got my object in there. And I'm going to repeat that with the other two. Place my equals with colons. Put commas at the end. And I'll just get started with these two in here. So now I need to access the information in this data. I'll give everyone a minute to catch up on the formatting there if you need it. I will also copy and paste it into Slack if you need it there.
The data folder is going to be in the home folder as well.
No, it's not in home. It's up at the SRC level. And the reason I put it out there is because project is also going to need to access it.
Thank you.
Does order matter?
Yes. Whatever project you want to show up on the top should be the first one in the array.
Okay.
But if you don't care about the order in the that it shows up, you don't have to care about the order in the array.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got our data here. What we're going to do is we are going to import our data up at the top. So we're going to import our data from, and now we're in portfolio, and the data folder is outside of this home folder. So you guys have seen 1 dot, now you're seeing 2 dots. That's saying go up 1 folder level and go grab the data. And to make sure that's working, I'm just going to throw a console log in here of data. So I save that and go back over to my Chrome. I make sure I'm in my React app. I make sure I'm on my home page, and I go into my console, and now I see, hey, here's my array with all of my objects inside of it. So one more step, and then I'll pause to poll. What if we do something like this? What if we say, hey, go get my data and map over it? And every time that you find a new project data, I would like you to return the project component and just take all of the data from project data and dump it in as a prop. And if we did that right, we should be able to delete our projects from here. So I save, I come back over to my browser, and now here are my 2 portfolios. We just need one more piece of information up here, and that's going to be the index that we throw on as a key. That silences any errors that we have in our terminal, and we are good to go. So we took all of our information and we moved it out into its own separate data file. We know it's an array because it's got to store several projects. Inside of that, every object, every project is going to get its own object. Then we put in the information that we want to show up for each project. Then in our portfolio.js, we have to reference that import. So we pull it in, now that's stored in data. So we come down to our data and we map over it. And in that map, we get the project data, that's all of the information in here, and we spread it out into the project as props. It's taking image, title, text, and button and dumping them in to my project child component as a prop or as multiple props. We have to include the key because whenever we use a map, we need a key prop so React can tell it all apart. And now if we add in another project over here, it will automatically generate out my new component based off of the data in here. Man, wouldn't it be cool if our curriculum included something with a easier way of maintaining all of this data? Coming next week.
Could you explain what .map does again? I know it has something to do with looping over and like showing updated info.
Yes. So .map, all the .map does is it generates a new array based off of an existing array. So basically we're looping over data to get access to project data. So think about that as kind of the equivalent of for const project data of data. And then what happens is if we return some function, some component in here that has the project data. This is basically the equivalent, right? So what we're doing is we're saying for const project data of data, what would you like to show up for each one of these data points? Whatever that is, whatever gets returned from this map is what will show up for each project in the data. I went fast there. You have time to catch up. If you are lost somewhere, I don't need to know what you're lost on or where you're lost. I just need to know that you're lost. So if you need help, raise your hand and I can catch you up. Brandon was in first. Let's see. I may regret offering help here. Let's see if you can screen share.
Yeah, it's just showing me that there's like an issue with a closing div, but I have no idea. Like it's telling me this is the issue, and then when I try and bring up the site, like the React site, it's just broken.
So I think this div lines up with this closing div, which means this is just an extra guy hanging out.
Okay. All right.
Why is your prettier not running though? Do you not have it set to format on save?
I don't think I formatted it right. I just downloaded it and it just I don't think I have it formatted right.
So let's turn that on because it's gonna rock your world. If we do format on save, we can just check that off. And then we need to check the default formatter. And we're gonna set that to prettier. There it is. Okay.
Where
And
did-
now what?
Oh, I said, where did you go? Under,
Code up at the top, preferences down to settings. Two things you want to turn on. You want to do a search for format on save and make sure that this is checked. And then the other place that you want to do is you want to do a search for default formatter and make sure this drop down is set to prettier. And now if we make a change and save it, boom, you've been prettied.
I meant to ask about that for so long and then I always forget. And then I was like, oh, it's probably messing me up somewhere.
You hate it for the first little while and then you get really used to it and then you fall in love with it.
Okay, well, I'll take your word on that. All right, thank you.
No problem. Archell, you're up.
So
All right. So I pretty much got lost when we started copying over the cards and he started deleting stuff. So I don't think I can share my screen. So I'm probably going to have to rewatch the video and do it piece by piece to make sure I get what I need, but keep my own tweaks to it.
Give a screen share a try because it seems to be intermittent.
All right, let's give it a shot.
Some people call me stubborn, but I like to call it persistence.
Nope, error code 105035 still. Fiddlesticks. I know.
Okay, so basically what we did, and you can write down 808 in your notes if you want to jump right to this timestamp. What we did is we had all of our portfolio information hanging out in here. And we're like, all right, that's not very dry either. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have access to our content, our data, our code, kind of all of the content over in its own file? So what we did is we came over, we right-click on source, and we make a new file called data.js. That would have probably been better to call content, but hindsight's 2020. So we made data.js, and then we're like, well, we already have all of this information. So we started copying them off the props that we had in our portfolio. So we made each one its own object and then converted the props into object format by replacing the equals with colons. Once we got that in there, we made sure all of our formatting was right. We have our export default at the top. We've got our array in here. Then each one of these projects gets a curly brace with a comma after it. And then we close out the array. Now we get to use this array. So we come back over and we say, hey, we've got to import the data from data. And we do a double dot here because data is in the folder above the home folder. So we say a double dot takes us from home out back to the source folder where we can get access to the data. Then we put this console login to make sure that we can see the array and that everything's flowing the way we want. And when we go over to our browser, we can see the array here. If we pop it open, we can see our objects. And then we come into this data.map. We got rid of everything that was accessing, using the project component itself. And we went through and we said, hey, go through each one of them to get the project data. And what I would like you to show up for every individual project, I want you to show the project component where you take all of the data from over here and dump it into project via the props. That means that all of this information, because there are two projects, that project component will show up twice and still use all of the props from down here. Most of you guys are voted in. Does anyone need help? All right, we're not going to build out the entire project page. All we're going to do is show the benefits of moving our data into its own separate file. So what we're going to do is in our link down here, I'm going to put a slash and I'm going to put my template literal in, and I'm going to pass in the index. However, I don't have access to the index. This is my child component, right? My index is all the way up here in this loop. So I need to pass in one more prop and pass in the prop in here as well. If I pass all of that in, I can go back to my app.js and tell it, hey, you're not only going to get /project, you're going to get the project number.
Where did we define index?
Here,
Mm-hmm.
here,
And then down there.
here, and one more down here.
Okay.
We use our map to loop over everything. That's going to give us access to the index. We then take the index that is coming from our loop, put it into a prop called index. We then send that prop index in to the child component. Then we use that very same index down here when we generate the link. All right. Now we do the last step here. Over in our project page, we haven't done anything yet. We haven't moved this over. That's okay. We're just going to get the guts of this working. What we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, there is some project data. And we need to be able to set the project data from our use state. But if the project data hasn't been loaded yet, return an H1 that says loading ... We're going to import our data from the data file. And we are going to also import both use state and use effect from React. Now we need state here because once the data gets loaded in, we need to show that to the user. Whenever we've got data that needs to be shown to the user, anything that requires a re-render goes through state. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, use a use effect that sets the project data to our data, and then we need that project num. But we don't have the project num. So we need one more use params from React Router DOM. Const params equals use params, and then take our params and use it to get the project num.
Can we stop there?
Mhm.
Okay.
No, one more line. Then we take the project data and show the title. Okay, now I'm done. If we go to the
Okay.
browser and we click on a button, you can see feedback form shows up. And if we go back and we click on get streaming, we can see our Maxflix show up. So as you guys are doing that, I'm going to start putting in comments that are numbered for that last step, because I know we want fast there, but I really wanted to get this done so that you guys can see, hey, in my capstone, if I've got a bunch of different pages that all share the same layout, I can use this project setup in order to not have to make every individual page. If you think about that, that may be, I have one animal.js page, and that one animal is going to be formatted with all of this data. And then as we click on different animals, I don't need to make separate pages for all of them. I can just route directly to the animal, include the ID in the URL, and get that information to show up without having to make separate pages. That could be a different game, right? A different basketball game where the times are different and the dates are different and the players are all different, but we can make that one file and based off of the data, make that show up correctly on the page. Sorry, those were the top two on my mind. I don't know why, but solid out projects there. So let me start adding comments.
So, when I press on any of the buttons, it takes me to a blank page.
Okay, check your app.js and make sure you've got the project num added in as a route parameter.
Can you show me really fast? I'm sorry.
Yep, it should look like this.
Oh, project num. Okay. So should it just say project at the top? Or should it say something else?
It should say the project name right underneath it.
Okay.
Not doing that?
No,
Okay. I bet you're close. Share your screen.
I can't remember.
Oh, do you want to do a live share and send it to me?
Yeah, I'll do that. So
Okay.
go ahead.
Man, imagine if we had to do this every single class. That would not be fun. Okay. So let's start up at the top. You put your project num in so it knows, hey, that param is coming in. Then you go to your portfolio and we imported the data, we mapped over the data, we have access to the project data and the index, and everything's properly passed in. So then we come down here, you added the prop for the index, you added your template literal, and you've got your button. So all of that is good. So we then go to our project page where you import the data again, and you also pull in use effect, use state, use params. You've got everything set up there. And you use... Oh. You're going to hate yourself. We literally just had to tell it, you did all of the work. And then you were like, yeah, but we don't actually need to make that show up anywhere.
Yay. Okay, thank you.
So check in your browser, make sure it's there. You might need to highlight it so you can see the text, but that should do it.
Dash. It shows up, but nothing else. So that's
Yeah,
it.
that's fine. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Alba, go for it.
There anything else we were supposed to do? I know if I press the weather app, it takes me to the weather app page.
Yep.
But if I click on the feedback form, it just takes me to the header top.
Can you share your screen?
And the stream away too. Sure, let me try. So why doesn't? Oh, this is the page. If I go to the forecast, it takes me to the forecast page. But the provide feedback sends me,
You're really gonna hate me.
yeah.
What port are you on?
Oh, this is the page.
So hit back on that. And then try, yeah, now you got weather app. And if you go to feedback, you've got feedback.
So the other one is not linked up to any of data information. It's just taking us to a separate page just to show a black screen, right?
Correct, yeah.
All right, thank you.
So if you wanted to, you could build out that project page by going through everything that we did tonight from index, but instead doing it from project.html, and then all of your data is in that used state already. So you could just do the project data dot whatever other information you needed, and that would show up.
Okay.
Okay, one final review, and then I will let you guys go. No one can ever say to me that I'm not good about keeping you guys to the last minute. You're on the edge of your seats. All right. So we are starting this whole flow just at what it takes to make the project show up on the home screen and be able to click through to them. So we start in our portfolio.js. We import the data from that data file, right? Our object, our array, all of that's coming in from data. Then we come over and we loop over each one of those projects. Every time that we loop over each one of those projects, we get access to the individual project data that we dump into our project component as props. We also pass in the index that's coming from our array. That index comes down here and gets used to generate out the URL. That URL, then when we click on it, goes back up to app.js and says, whoa, I am now going to the project page, and that project page is going to include a parameter called project num. That fires us in to the project file, where we create an empty placeholder to put our project data in state. Then we set up the ID to come out of the router, right? We need access to the ID up here in the URL. That this path matches the same path that we had in portfolio. So it's all firing together. Our link tag is firing to our app. Our app is firing to our component. Then we actually skip this. because this doesn't load until the first time the component shows up. So we go down to 10 and we say, if the data hasn't been loaded yet, it hasn't, our use effect hasn't run, show them a loading message. Now, because the component has returned something out of it, we now go back up and we say the component loaded for the first time. So set the project data, set the state using the data that we imported and the project number from our params. Whoa, how does it know about project num? Because we told the router, heads up, there's a project num coming in that path, because we put a colon in front of it. Now we've got the right project coming out of the data, set that into the project data. That now comes down to 13 and it says, no, we can skip this. There's already project data in the state. We don't need to show the loading message. We can come down to our project and show the title that's firing all the way back to our data title.
Max, where's the array?
In data. This is the array.
That's the array that we're getting the index from.
Correct.
Another page. Okay.
What's
Thanks.
the term for that? It's one array, but has like 2 data sets. What's the proper term for that?
2 data sets. There are 2 objects inside this array.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
No, it went a little fast at the end, but this is how the sausage is made. And I would be surprised if any one of your capstones did not require a similar setup to this. We've got some information on our homepage and it's just a little snippet, but when they click on it, I need to go get more information about that. This routing technique is commonly used so that we pass the information of what's getting clicked on into the URL, then use the data in that URL to set our state to show the right content. Alba.
So for the contents of the weather app, the feedback page and the max flicks to show up, we would have to import the HTML for those to be able to view it, or can we link it in any other way?
You can you can extend this data.js and just add additional keys into this.
So I know I could add an additional key to actually click to that project itself, but do I have to import that project into this React? Can I link to it as an outside project?
Oh, that's not encouraged.
So the weather, we already have the weather app information. So if we want to use this portfolio, we would have to import that weather app information and link it and add the link there in that data as the key.
Correct. Correct.
But then we would have to import all of the class names and everything else in the projects themselves to be able for them to be able to be viewed.
You got it.
All right.
I wish I had your brain, Alba. My goodness.
Only reason I got that was because I already had started importing my page. So I've already done a bunch of the component work. So I'm starting to get what I'm supposed to do.
It's always a good night when I can throw a curveball at Alba and Brian and not have them be 3 steps ahead of me. Surprise! We're using a whole new data file. All right, I've got all the code in Slack, so you can reference that. What I would recommend you guys do is on a fresh brain, maybe after some sleep, go through and read those comments. Say, hey, I'm starting as the user on this portfolio section. How do I make it so when I click on this, I end up on a page that has more information about that project? I've numbered everything out there. You may need to hunt for the next number, and there is a good chance that when I'm this tired, I skipped a number or used a number twice. If I did, I'm sorry. But go through that, read on it. No homework for this. This is just so you've got a reference. So when you get into your capstones and need to route based off of what link they click on, you have a project to reference for that. So that's all I've got for you tonight. Sorry for keeping you 5 minutes over. If you cannot get this working, or you think you have it but want to re-explain it and just kind of talk it back to me, feel free to book a one-on-one with me. Or if you want to try what we learned on Thursday of making some visual diagram for this, or writing up an essay, or recording a screencast, those are all great things that are not only going to help you understand it more, but it's something you can show to an employer and say, look, you're not just hiring me because I know JavaScript or React or HTML. I can communicate these technical concepts, right? I can show that I really have understanding. And sometimes a planning doc is actually more important than the code that that planning doc produces. So it's a long night. We got through it. We got everything routing. We are done with portfolio. We are done with all new code. So tomorrow, want you to not only review the steps in the code, make sure you trace through them, but tomorrow I also want you to come in ready with capstone questions. Don't be afraid of where you're at. It's amazing how much we can get done in just 2 days together and a weekend. So focus in on capstone once you've got this understanding in your head, and I will see you guys tomorrow. And I will also stick around if anyone feels that they're close and needs help. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, Max.